This is Indian Country Today.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Trahant. Here are the headlines from Indian Country Today. The NASA rover Perseverance streaks toward its landing on Mars. It's the riskiest step yet in an epic quest to bring back rocks that could answer whether life ever existed on the red planet. And Aaron Yazzie has a front row seat to it all. He's Dene, and this is his third Mars mission. Yazzie is a mechanical engineer at NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. The landing of the six-wheeled vehicle will mark the third visit to Mars in just over a week. All three missions lifted off in July to take advantage of the close alignment between Earth and Mars, traveling some 300 million miles in nearly 7 months. The Cherokee Nation businesses in Oklahoma are closed this week in an effort to help conserve power in this unprecedented winter storm. The closures affect all 10 of its casinos and other tribal enterprises. The announcement comes after multiple utility companies falling under control of Southwest Power Pool, saying they are running low on energy supply. We spoke with the CEO of Cherokee Nation Businesses, Chuck Garrett, who said they made the decision based on the needs of the community.
We felt like it was the right thing to do to turn our venues dark so that we could make certain that our communities had power to heat the homes and light the homes as well. So that was our decision. It was a trade-off, of course, but
the Cherokee Nation will continue to pay all of its employees while the businesses are closed. Southwest Power Pool provides service to 14 states from the Southwest to the Midwest plus Louisiana. The state of Minnesota is returning land where the Dakota War began to a tribe. It's a move tribal citizens call small, but an important step in a long, difficult, and complicated road toward healing. Stuart Huntington has this report from the Lower Sioux Indian community.
Talks to repatriate the 120-acre historic site along the Minnesota River began back in 2004. And now, after getting legislative approval, the State Historical Society is turning over the property.
It has been a very slow process, but with patience and communication and consultation between the agencies, the tribe, we're going to have a good day to celebrate that we get to grow our land base. And this isn't a thing to own the land, but to regain the relationship with that land and heal.
But healing won't be easy. In 1862, after enduring a decade of unmet treaty obligations, many Dakota took up arms. At the end of the ensuing 6-week war, 38 Dakota men were executed in the largest mass hanging in U.S. history. That backdrop tempers the urges to rejoice at the return of the land.
With a good heart, we accept it. It's just the long history of that particular area back in 1862 is hard for both sides.
Pamela Halverson was the tribe's historic preservation officer when the repatriation talks began. She visited the site this week to sing and pray.
Wanka tonka toka heya chewakieo hey. The land, has lots of stories behind it. So there's lots of lives that were taken for this land, and it makes my heart feel heavy. Having this place and the land to tell our stories and to tell our history has been important to us. Not just 1862, but who our people really are, how beautiful we were and still are today.
In Morton, Minnesota, this is Stuart Huntington, Indian Country Today.
The State Historical Society will continue to own and manage property within the Lower Sioux Reservation, including a historic warehouse and a visitor center. And those are the headlines from Indian Country Today. I'm Mark Trahant. When we come back, we'll take a look at one tribe's path to federal recognition some 40 years ago. In northwestern Washington state, it's the home of the Jamestown S'Klallam Tribe. The tribe's history with the federal government goes back to 1855, when the tribe signed the Point No Point Treaty. Yet 100 years later, the government changed policy, thus setting up a struggle for the formal federal recognition process. It took years of proving who they were and what their tie to the land was before gaining federal recognition on February 10, 1981. Today, Ron Allen is the tribal chairman and chief executive of the Jamestown S'Klallam Tribe. In fact, he was the first tribal chairman and served in that position since the tribe was formally recognized in 1981. He joins us to discuss the progress of his tribe and what its plans are for the future. Welcome, Chairman Allen.
Thank you, Mark. It's an honor to be on the program.
You have such an innovative tribal government. Tell us about how that process started and how that really unfolded for you.
Well, when I got involved with the tribe way back in the mid-'70s, and primarily because I used to play a lot of Indian basketball and I needed my Indian blue card that the BIA used to issue. And because we weren't federally recognized, they couldn't reissue them. So that became a problem with my basketball career. So they talked me into coming onto the council. This is in '75, and in '77, I became the chair, and I started leading the charge, or picked up the charge on becoming federally recognized. In the late '70s, mid-'70s, late '70s is when the federal recognition process was unfolding in the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And so we quickly got our petition together, got in the queue list. Back in that time, around '75, '76, we became the 19th application. And as it kept unfolding, the rules and criteria kept changing because of the strength of ours and the support that we had in our region here in the Northwest. We quickly became number 2 behind Grand Traverse up in Michigan. And so fortunately, fortunately, unfortunately, it took us about six and a half years to actually come to a success. So that was in '81. And I moved from the chair into the chair CEO position in the early '80s after we got recognized, and the journey began.
Well, and it's an extraordinary journey. You see evidence throughout the region about both the cultural and economic impact of the tribe.
Yeah, it has changed. A lot of the drive for us, because we're a Northwest tribe and we consider ourselves salmon people, fishing and exercising our way of living through our treaty resources was a big deal for us. And so we had a lot of people who wanted to go back out and wanted to fish and to make a living. So you had to become recognized, and then you had to be accepted in what's called the Bolt Court decision that happened in the mid-'70s. And so that was a big driver. And then after that, it became a part of restoring, preserving and restoring our cultural and traditional practices. So that's been unfolding for the last 40 years, including the restoration of our languages and many of the practices we have. Art is only one of them, traditional foods and so forth. There's a lot to who we are as a unique indigenous people in the American Indian society.
How has the pandemic impacted your community this year?
Well, it certainly hurt our businesses. As we were moving into self-governance and then the self-reliance, which is the business arm of the tribe, that had a huge impact on us. And then our ability to serve our people, because here in Washington, the governor ordered the whole state, basically lock down and stay home, stay safe, mask up, practice good hygiene, etc. And it became a challenge. As everyone knows, serving from the families, the children, all the way to the elders, which is the most challenging, making sure we can take care of them. So the pandemic really did set us back. We weren't prepared for this kind of incident. It scrambled that really caused us to step back here after a full year of experiencing it, and to rethink, how we can be better prepared for these kinds of emergencies. And we're making it work as everyone's doing this virtual forum, with Zoom calls and what have you. We're surviving. So we just had a huge Zoom celebration with our whole community. And it was a pretty large Brady Bunch on the screen for all those who wanted to join in, including doing the traditional songs and prayers that we would do. It's being orchestrated. So we're surviving like we always have for many generations, and we're making it work while we're quickly vaccinating all of our people, from the elders down to our kids.
So the vaccination program's rolling out well?
Ours is going great. We are at a very high level of vaccinating our people, and it's working exceptional. We have a very good health clinic here that we developed many, many years ago. And we took a little different approach with our clinic. We serve both our Indian community and our non-Indian community. So that's how we've been able to make it a better success. So, and of course, we prioritize our people, and it made it real easy for us to put together the vaccination program. And quite frankly, we're way ahead of the schedule here in Washington State. Governor actually has called us up and asked, how are we doing that? Because you have to secure the numbers of vaccine to vaccinate as many people as you can. And I've got a great team. So it's working. And it certainly does dial down the anxiety and the pressure by our community.
That's really one of the great stories from Indian country this year, is how well the vaccine's rolling out really across the country. Both the Indian Health Service and tribes are just ahead of the curve on this one.
We are, for the first time, for generations and generations, when you look at all the standards which you'd measure the quality of healthcare in America, the tribes are always lagging way behind. So we're really down on the totem pole of quality of services, at the level of funding made available for our clinics and hospitals and elder care and so forth. But that's been a struggle for us for many generations. But when it came to emergencies like this, we stepped up, and it shows how strong and how well organized the tribes are as a government, and the way we provide our services, in this case, healthcare.
Chairman Allen, you mentioned that you serve the surrounding community with your medical care. I wanted to ask you about a big part of that being Medicaid, and Medicare for that matter. You've been really innovative in your use of those programs. And I wonder, one, how it works for your community, but two, is this a moment for potential reform of Medicaid?
Yes. Well, there's a lot to it that's been unfolding over the years in terms of how CMS applies to Medicaid and Medicare, for that matter, how they apply. One of the big changes, well, first of all, Medicaid, quite frankly, it doesn't work for most of mainstream healthcare. The rates just don't work. For us, it does. We can make it work, and we've turned our healthcare program and clinic into business, and to make it work. You have to be able to generate revenue, or you can't recruit and retain high-level professionals, from the doctors, from the nurse specialists, RNs, and the specialist healthcare, et cetera. So we have really worked hard at it. There's a lot of different elements to it to make it work for us. One of them is telehealth, so that we recover the full rate of service through the telehealth. It allows us to reach particularly senior elder citizens who often deter or look for reasons why not to come into the clinic and take care of their healthcare needs. And so it has really become one of the positive outcomes that came out of the pandemic. And but being able to generate the rates of service for Medicaid, basically the economically disadvantaged community, which Indian country falls in for the most part, it allows us to be able to provide a stronger clinic and stronger hospitals for those who have hospitals. We don't have them here in the Northwest, but they are elsewhere, Alaska, Oklahoma, et cetera. But it's a big deal, Mark. You have to really step back and rethink how you provide health care. And if you turn it into a business, if you treat it like a business in terms of cost recovery, it's a very complicated system from state recoveries, private health sector, third-party revenues, and so forth, which includes Medicaid and Medicare reimbursements. So there's a lot to it, including the services outside, what they call the four walls of the actual property you have, and that makes the case for the telehealth, because you're providing the service not on the property, but through computers with individuals in their homes.
One key, and your chair, I should mention, you're chairman of the Tribal Technical Advisory Committee for the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare. So you have a unique perspective nationally as well as with your own tribal government. I want to ask you, right now there's a process that's a little convoluted where states have a great say in how tribes run Medicaid programs. Is this a moment to look at that and to think maybe it ought to go directly to tribes and have more tribal control?
Yes, without a doubt. From state to state, it differs. We're very fortunate here in Washington State. We have a very proactive, very strongly supportive of tribal operations with our state. And we have an advisory board that interfaces with our state Medicaid and Medicare program, well, Medicaid, I'm sorry, program. So it works well. But we know that a lot of our sister tribes in different states don't have that relationship. So for CMS to modify a system to directly reimburse the tribes and not have to work through the state for these cost recoveries really improves the efficiency. Now, we've been trying to work hard to get the state Medicaid directors to be supportive of this concept and why it really is a win-win proposition. Took a long time for Oklahoma to come to grips with if you can provide Medicaid and get the appropriate reimbursements, then it works for you. And Oklahoma, finally saw the light and made changes. It took the people and not the legislature and the governor to make that happen. And so it showed that it works. So yes, improving that relationship, and we're very hopeful here with the Biden administration. We think there's going to be a much more positive disposition to changing the laws and the regulations to directly interface with the tribal operations. And for us, that's consistent with the government-to-government relationship that we have with the United States.
We only have about a minute left, so I wanted to let you talk about, you have an innovative museum as well, and maybe talk about what that does and how you can reach people through a virtual museum.
Yeah, we're excited about our, we call ours a library museum. We kind of combine the two. So yes, and one of the things we're using is the broadband technology, and that's a big deal for us. We're really very progressive on that matter. It allows people to go onto the system and to visit and have a quick understanding of our history, our cultural traditional practices, finding out information about who we are. And there's lots of elements to it, but we really think that we're leaning towards the new generation, generations that are much more technologically advanced individuals.
We'll be sure to put a link to that museum in our platform. Thank you, Chairman Ron Allen from Jamestown S'Klallam Tribe, for joining us today.
Mark, it's been an honor. Thank you.
We'll be right back. issue of Oak Flat is not over yet for some people in the San Carlos Apache community, despite the latest court ruling. Carina Dominguez has been following the story, and she joins us with the latest. Welcome, Carina.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
So tell us about the latest developments and what the group Apache Stronghold has been trying to do.
Right. So there was a lawsuit, but recently a judge decided that this group, the grassroots group Apache Stronghold, does not have any standing to sue, saying they're not a sovereign nation. So they are planning on appealing that. The judge said a number of other things that they disagreed with, among those being that the Apaches' right to religion wasn't a burden and wasn't something that was worth, recognizing. The other thing that they mentioned was, but these things are developing pretty quickly here. So, as this continues to go on, we'll see, what's going to happen with the other lawsuits. The San Carlos Apache Tribe filed a lawsuit, and then there's also some environmental groups and the intertribal, agency here in Arizona who were a part of that as well.
And I think one thing that's important is that this is really not even the merits of the case yet. This was for an injunction, so there is a long ways to go no matter what happens.
Yeah, there is a long ways to go. So at this point, nothing has been signed. It's not official. I know with, those delays, they're actually waiting and seeking public comments right now. So Apache Stronghold is encouraging their supporters, their group members, anyone else who might care about this issue to go ahead and make those comments. They have all that information on their website. But they say, with this not being signed yet, they are, seeing some delays. So they're trying to optimize on that time to see what they can do to save the area.
Since the 1950s, Oak Flat has been protected as a campground. Maybe take us there and tell us about what it's like being there.
Right. Yeah, I've been out there a few times. I've made several visits since 2015. It's actually really beautiful because Monsignor Senior, who's the leader of Apache Stronghold, he's the founder of the grassroots organization. He's the former chairman. He is actually camping out there now. So he lives there full time. He surveys the area. He keeps track of, what the area looks like, before this work really, starts going on. But they have really reclaimed the area. It was used historically by Apache people, for sustenance, but also just praying. It's been a culturally significant area, but we're seeing a surge of that coming back. I think some of that might have been lost over the years, but, there's a huge resurgence in that now. So actually this weekend, there's going to be a sunrise ceremony there. And the unfortunate thing is, if, this land swap goes through on March 11th, it would become private property for Resolution Copper, owned by, Rio Tinto, that behemoth in the, extractive industry. But at that point, they've been very aggressive with trying to acquire the land. They've hired outside security forces to kind of monitor the area. So there's been a lot of tension out there at the campground. So I can only imagine March 11th, if there are Apache people out there, if there's sunrise ceremonies going on, I don't think they'll hesitate to try to arrest and prosecute these Apache people.
Maybe remind viewers about how the land was exchanged in the beginning and how Arizona, the land was traded for the Resolution Copper.
Right. Yeah. Former Senator John McCain was pretty instrumental in getting that pushed through. It happened, I believe, while he was actually seeking a presidential term. And there was a lot of campaign contributions to his campaign from Resolution Copper. That's been well documented. But, he was a part of it. A few other Arizona legislators like Jeff Flake. But basically what happened was, there's a must-pass defense spending bill every single year. This, Defense Authorization Act must get passed. So it was in the 11th hour, it was really late at night. He kind of slid this land exchange in there. Land exchanges, this kind of thing happens quite often. But this case is pretty interesting because for decades, Resolution Copper has tried to acquire the land, and then the way it was slipped in the 11th hour, that was, very underhanded is what the Apaches say. Well,
in addition to Apache Stronghold, we know there's a lot of action being taken by the San Carlos Apache tribe. And there's also the prospect for federal intervention in a regulatory sense from the new Biden administration. So thank you, Carina, for this important update.
Thank you so much.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world today. Thank you for watching. We'll be back with another edition tomorrow. I'm Mark Trahant.
Indian Country Today is recorded at the Phoenix Indian School Visitor Center in Phoenix, Arizona.
This is Indian Country Today.